Tears.
Seriously, what are you making?
Liquid gold.
Also known as
Basic pulled pork. Right now we're crying while chopping onions. I've doubled up my non-latex gloves that I normally use for coloring my hair to avoid washing my hands excessively because it's wintertime. And I am crying right now. Ooh. Well, now that we've determined that the garlic was paid for but left at the store, we're going to substitute garlic powder. And this is a very fat-heavy piece of meat, so we want to create as much surface area of fat such that we can have as much even dripping of lip. I don't know what I'm talking about. We're going to score it in a crosshatch pattern with a knife, going down into the fat, but not all the way to the meat, like this. See how we're not all the way into the meat? We're just increasing the surface area of the fat to help it sort of, render. You want your kitten to stay away. Okay, and then we'll go back the other way, just like that. Finding the other portions of fat on here. Something similar. Oh God. Probably good enough. All right. Looking beauteous. So in the name of not grossing anyone in the family out, we've pre-combined our kosher salt, black pepper, and garlic powder. I have a mixture of salt, pepper, and garlic powder. I would say it is like 2 parts salt to 1 part each of garlic powder and pepper. And I'm liberally seasoning the outside of the meat prior to the initial sear. But as you can see, I'm double dipping my meat tainted hand into the spices, and so in the name of avoiding cross-contamination, I've created a little independent rub. Pie. We have some oil. It's probably a little bit overheated at this point in the coated cast iron Dutch oven. And now we're going to take our seasoned meat and put it fat side down for an initial sear in the olive oil. I'd say it's about, if I can get it fat side down. There we are. So now we'll sear this on an initial side until golden. We'll flip it on the other side, and then we will get the 2 remaining broader sides. We'll remove it from the oven. Well, we'll get there. I want a snack. Once your baby has split with you the last cold beer and given you the lion's share, time to sear the last side.
all right.
Yeah. Oh, these are probably not the safest tongs for the job, folks. All right. So we're going to sear the remaining side, and then we're going to take the meat out and let it rest. As you'll recall, we've chopped 5 to 6 medium onions, shed a tear, and those are hanging out in the fridge, and we'll revisit those shortly. Remember how difficult this was to do? You would breathe in through your nose, and you'd feel like it would go straight to behind your eyes. Well, it's not for naught. Get ready to go. We're now going to remove the fully seared pork from the skillet. You'll note that I've washed this cutting board I was using earlier. We need a place to rest our pork. Oh, a little bit. This is a heavy piece of meat for it. There we are. All right, that's gonna hang out. And we're gonna just go ahead and dump these in here. We're gonna let them go truly as long as you can stand it. Keep the heat pretty low and try to get some good caramelization, because that sweetness is really gonna be it's gonna be one of the main items of sweetness, and as you may or may not be aware, sweet and pork go together exceptionally well. So we're just gonna let these hang out. We'll check back in on them in a little bit to see how they're rendering. These onions have been going for probably about 10 minutes now, and you can see sort of, you know, you see how those sugars, finally, there was a lot of liquid in there, and then once the onions began to sweat, and we put a little salt in there, they released more liquid, and now that liquid is sort of starting to condense and caramelize, thus the change in color. We're gonna let it go for probably 10 more minutes, and we'll show you the color that it gets to at that point. I don't really know how long it's been since we last checked in, because time is irrelevant when you're caramelizing onions. We've taken them to sort of a deep golden. You can see I've got some darker brown in here, the result of my being distracted, texting my friend about the possibility of French onion pho, right? Anyway, so at this stage of the game, you know, we could take it a little bit longer and make it more like an onion jam. We're not gonna do this at this point. This is your only opportunity to develop the sugars in the onion, but I would like these to have enough body to undergo the, I'm bullshitting you. Mainly I'm sick of stirring the onions, and I think they're gonna taste good. But they have cooked for a very long time. The sugars have materially developed. So, at this point, what we're gonna do is, you don't have to use, this is a hard cider by Angry Orchard. You know, you could also use an apple cider. Unfiltered apple cider is what a certain recipe that I've referenced calls for. I don't care. Anyway, said Pierre. I think that's a song from something that one of my sisters enjoyed as a child. I poured about half of this in there. It's probably gonna be enough liquid. Take your beautiful piece of meat, nestle it in there. Fat side up to the extent you can comfortably rest it in there. That's not what this is, but that's something that food people on the telly say. Get all those juices up in there. All right, the oven is preheated to 325, and I've moved the racks around so this will rest comfortably in there. And now, this sucker's just gonna hang out for the foreseeable future, probably about 3 hours or so. I'm not supposed to be doing this. Oh yeah, that's gonna be good. It needs a lot more time though. I've made a costume change and we're ready to look at the nearly finished product. Sizzle. Okay. Wow, that's heavy. All right. Oh yeah. So this is 3 hours of braising. And now we're going to just sort of let it sit covered while it comes to a temperature at which we can, well, I take that back. I'm going to remove the meat shortly and let that rest to come to a temperature where I can shred it. And then I'll consider whether or not we need to remove anything from the liquid. I'm sorry, I can't really do that. Okay. Okay. So, assuming that we're able to get this on the, oh, and there we are. So this is what you want. You want it falling apart. Because once you get it on your, you're gonna take your forks and start pulling it apart, like the pulled pork that it is. Ta-da! So we're just gonna keep doing this until it's all done, and then I will add it back to the liquid, and I think we're gonna have a sauce to accompany that Anders will be sharing with us shortly.
Wow.
In the soup. Oh, don't even think about it, pants. Oh God. Sorry. Man overboard. Oh God.
Okay. Take 4 of these tomatillos. You take the husk off. Wash it. I'm just taking the top off. I'm gonna chop it up. So I've taken 4 tomatillos. I'm doing 2 jalapenos. I'm just gonna cut them a little. They are going into a blender, so. And then 1/4 cup of cilantro. Not going to be anal about it because it's going into a blender. And then I'm using 2 small avocados, so. This one's not very ripe. I don't know how we're gonna get this one out. Seems a little difficult. That happens sometimes. Yeah, this one's a little underripe. You'll get that in the Midwest. It's okay. Alright. Do a little garlic powder. Since we don't have garlic clove because it disappeared, let's do a little water. Do you remember how much it was?
I think it's like a 1/4 cup.
1/4 cup, okay. Say that.
You gonna put any salt in there?
I don't think so, not yet. Alright. Pulse. You like chunky salsa. This is a very imprecise science. Let's test it. Take your oldest bag of chips. Stale ones preferably.
Thank you.
I think it's perfect.
So there's really any number of things you can do with this glorious pulled pork. The recept's a local. That's the literature. As far as tonight's offering, we're going to be having pulled pork tacos. I'm going to assemble one now for your pleasure, or envy, or either. Before we sit down and do a bite of meal. Really digging on all the fresh with the braised. Well done.